having a main focus on the documentary that has been put together by our own man, Manasseh Azura Awene, saying that somebody needs to take a decision. If you take what the conversations have been, where we are currently, where should the decision point be? Who should be taking the decision on what has transpired so far?
Well, yes, once again, good morning to your viewers. I think it will be right to, for all of us as a nation, remember those who lost their lives yesterday in the gory aircraft accident. So condolences to the family. I believe our hearts are with them. First of all, coming back home with regards to party, vigilantism and security and insecurity, we elect, our president. We go to the polls to elect the president. And by law, the president is the commander-in-chief of the Ghana Armed Forces. If Ghana has to, attack any nation, or if any nation has to attack us, the only person who would have to declare or undeclare war is the commander-in-chief of the Ghana Armed Forces, who in this case is the president of the republic. And so to answer directly, it is the president's duty to ensure that when we sleep, because it is one of the things he promised us when he came telling us we should vote for him. And so he's supposed to do that, probably through his appointed ministers and probably the other people. It goes down to all of us, ensuring that Ghana is at peace. And so I believe that it is in the hands of the president to make sure that when we sleep, Roland, yeah.
One of the main talking points or the sticking points coming out of the airing of this documentary have been the conclusion or perhaps the rebuttal by government following the statement by the Minister of Information about whether or not the description, as we also took from what the lexicon is from the commission that had just sat on the Ayawaso violence, about whether these groupings are vigilantes or could be described as militias, is always a bone of contention. What's your own observation on all these?
Well, Roland, my own observation, does the name matter? The name really doesn't matter. These are criminals, pure criminals. I mean, whether militia, whether vigilante, whether hoodlums or goons, these are criminals. And so for me, I've heard other pundits say, oh, you know what, let's not tag them as militia. Why not tag them as militia? Go back and check how these militia groupings started. Go back and check how Boko Haram started. Boko Haram started from the Islamic schools, where they go in there to teach children. Right? They go in there, some of them are Islamic scholars, they go in there purporting to be teaching children. And out of that, they indoctrinated them or indoctrinate them. And so this is how it starts. And so if anybody, I'm waiting for one person, anyone who knows how militia groups, I mean, people are looking at when these groups are already formed, but you need to go back and probably investigate how they got people to the point where, they are ready to die. If you listen carefully to, call it the commission, the guy one of them who came in to give testimony, the commissioners asked him, you are so brave. You got up, someone had a gun, you got up to face the person. I don't know if you listened to that aspect. And he said, yes, well, I'm ready to kind of die. What will make you stand up and face a man who is holding AK-47? Even, I mean, if you have military friends, you can ask them that even when you are captured as a war prisoner, your life is so important, you do whatever you have to do to live. Just around that. The man got up and faced them. It tells you how much some of these people are willing to die for their political, leaders. And so as far as I'm concerned, Roland, whether they are party, vigilantes, militia, let's look at how these groups are formed. Are they undergoing some form of tutorials? Is someone putting them together and, indoctrinating them, putting things into their minds that it will be difficult to undo? These are things we should be looking at, Roland. And so for me, the name militia would fit what I have learned, what I have investigated. I mean, you can go and check with, the Bakassi boys in Nigeria. You can check with, those who do the kidnappings in Nigeria. Sometimes they would employ you as a houseboy. They will feed you. They will give you everything, clothe you, and make you feel very wanted, that you are cared for. Then they begin to put you in the angle where they now want to use you. And so for me, let's not move away from the conversation and say, oh, labeling them as militia, this is how it starts. And Boko Haram is an example. They go into the Makarantes to indoctrinate these young children. And so for me, let's not look at the name and say, oh, we have a problem. Let's deal with the problem, Roland.
We've seen the genesis. In relation to this documentary especially, the group is DI. Subsequently, we've also had what we call a functioning group that has been operating within a premises that have been a seat of government, the Osu Castle. What we're told, depending on who you listen to, whether it's a security installation or is not. And it looks like they had proper structures, but there were deficits in perhaps incorporation or registration subsequently, or the licensing, so to speak, to operate. But they seem to have been getting going or are getting going. It speaks to the issues of finances. Where would they be getting the finances from if now we're having everybody coming to disown them and say they are setting up on their own? And two, how can we stop such trickling of the financing if the political actors are not involved?
Well, I think there are three things you have asked. The first one has to do with the allocation and the proper, name given to the location. If you ask me from where I sit, we have about 3 ministers who are supposed to be ministers at the presidency who are housed there. And so by extension, that place is the Jubilee House Annex, or Office of the President Annex. I mean, we have various security zones, but you want to label them as, say, Jubilee House is number 1, the castle, number 2. We used to have Blue Gate, and so in that order. And so let's not tickle ourselves and laugh and say, oh, it's just a normal, playground. No, it is not. We have Brian Achampon's offices in that office, and so that is one. And then 2, what do you call it, their finances? I think the question had to do with their finances, right? At least what I am aware of is that the group, I mean, probably Manasseh should have done a bit more work on their finances. But what I know is that most of their deployment are with some government agencies. Most of their deployment. And so they are operating like a full-fledged private security company where you go to most of these government agencies and they have personnel deployed. So let's say we don't provide man guard service. But assuming we were providing man guard service, then if you have to go and compete, you compete with this group. And so first of all, that is how they are financed. And then secondly, there are other people who finance them, but with that, it will be difficult for me to put the names out there. But I would say a chunk of their money comes from deploying these people at various agencies, and therefore I would ask that the Interior Ministry should do an audit of, what do you call it, security companies that are providing security, private security services in, what do you call it, the various agencies or all over the country. Because then if you set up a company and it's a private security company, you are supposed to be licensed by law to provide any form of security, guard service. If they haven't done that, I think there's punishment that they would have to be given, and so that would have to be given to them. And so for me, it's something that needs to be done. Then apart from that, we have also heard about they were driven away from the place. Do you just drive them away? Do you just drive them away from the place? I mean, this is, Office of the President.
Right, welcome back. Now, we're so sorry that we had a bit of a problem there with our conversation with Adam Bonaa. We can rejoin them now as he speaks to Roland Walker.
Their membership is close to 40,000.
They're more than the number for the police service.
Exactly.
That's around 23, 24,
yes,
25,000.
Police around 33 or so.
33.
About 33 or a little bit more. And so their number, if you put them, the registered members, the functional or functioning members of these various groups, they number close to 50,000. Between 40 to 50,000. And to me, that is worrying. And you know that when President Kufuor left office, some of them, within national security, were sent home. About 300 of them, the case ended up in courts. These people are usually sent to a sanctuary, given some military training, and they come in and they are decommissioned. They are asked to go home with all the military training, how to use weapons and all that, and they are sent home. And so just look at, from that time up to now, how many of them have been sent home? Do we know who they are? Do we know what they are doing? We don't know. And so if someone...
Is that a recipe for disaster?
That is definitely a recipe for disaster.
For example, at the commission, there's a... who operates as a national security operative, was given a 3-week training. There may be others in the past, maybe NDC government, some will be decommissioned when a new government comes in, some will still be in, etc. But having all this type of knowledge, how to load a gun, how to operate, maybe use some quasi form of intelligence gathering knowledge, etc. Should we be worried?
This fits the issue we are discussing. Typical militia militant training. Typical militia militant training. What I know with how these groups train their members, they don't have enough time to train you. They don't have enough time. You are taken to some shooting range. You are, made to jump, skip, climb the ropes and do few things. First day to test your physique, how strong you are, and subsequently you are given some rickety AK-47 and you are told to aim. And once you do probably 10% of proper aiming, that's all they need from you. Because then they have the bullets to give you, and so maybe you shoot 100 bullets and then one of them will be on target. And so this fits what we are discussing, because if you look at the narrative from Double, it was given just, what do you call it, story with military weapon training, not well. Let's call it weapon training. You and I know that we've been complaining even about the police doing 6 months, and the military about 6 to 9 months thereabout, and then the rest also doing the same. And so for a national security operative, who for me is not qualified to have done to be within the mainstream national security, would rather suit, what do you call it, informants. Arm informants. You don't arm informants. Informant, your qualification is the information you have. But unfortunately, people like that, and if you look at the guy who slapped Sam George, typically also would fit what I call informant. But they found their way into mainstream national security. So tomorrow another party comes, and these people, the moment another party comes, Double will lose his job, or you don't know. Double is the done deal that when tomorrow MPP is not in power, Double will lose his job. The guy who slapped, most of these people will lose their jobs. And so how do we integrate these people into society when they've been taught how to use weapons? And so, Roland, it is worrying that the training these people go through, amplifies the fact that this is pure militia militant training. If you want to give them proper training, in the past, if you have to join National Security, BNI, they had to do a lot of background checks on you. Sometimes it takes 2-3 years for them to make sure that this person, his temperament is okay, he will suit the work for which we are employing him. But all that is not done. So for me, I would congratulate Manasseh and encourage people like that to come out, to go out there and bring us some of this information. It is I think that is the only weapon that we could use to be able to fight this conquer we call vigilantism or party militia, Roland.
Is it that the political actors, the politicians, so to speak, they're oblivious of the decisions they are taking in trying to accommodate all these, and subsequently how that could have essential repercussions on national security, either in the short to medium term or medium to long term?
No, Roland, typical of our politicians, I think they don't really think about national security, the consequences of their actions, how that would impact on the nation's security probably in the next 5, in the next 10 years.
Why would you say that?
I'm saying that because then, as we said, if you ask me what is going on within the security architect, within the security fraternity, national security or security architect, what's going on there, I will tell you I don't know. Even though I'm supposed to be one of the key players in terms of privately, I don't know. Even though I don't know. So assuming, as we speak today, assuming I see terrorists or I have information about terrorists, who do I go and report that to? Who do I go and report that to? Assuming I see something that looks like a militia or militant group training, who do I go and report that to? Because you and I know that the police IGP at the commission said he's written 2 letters to, what do you call it, the national security, and there has not been any responses. And you and I know that the president is the chairman of the National Security Council. You and I know that the president is supposed to be briefed every morning, at least 30 minutes to an hour. But you and I also know that, Roland, if anyone who is thinking so well of our national security and the future of this country's security would not encourage this type of impunity. I'm saying this because if you look at the latest expose, the leaders are still walking free. I haven't heard anything from any quarters that we have arrested them. Even though Brian Achampon, they say, we arrested the leader and left him. You arrested the leader and left him? Did you? Is he, facing any prosecution? Nothing. And so the leader should by now have been interrogated. Let's do proper profiling of the people who they've recruited. The fact that they are in jackets, my brother, the fact that they are nicely dressed, is making people think that, you know what, oh, they don't, fit that purpose. Please.
If you look at the press statement of the Minister of Information and you go to point 5, it says, the disingenuous and deliberate attempt to cast the President of the Republic in a negative light in relation to this documentary, vis-a-vis the fight against vigilantism, exposed what is now believed to be the real motive of this documentary. And it continues that President Akufo-Addo made a passionate, sincere appeal to all political parties to disband their vigilante groups on the 21st of February 2019 when he delivered the State of the Nation address. And it says, mischievously, remarks by hosts of programs on JoyNews who sought to promote the documentary stated that without a shadow of the doubt that the president was preaching virtue and practicing vice. We've also been taking on because they said the promo showed people in masks and made recourse to Ayawaso. And then when they saw the documentary, they saw young men in white and women in white with jackets, black, etc. And there was no direct relation to having them holding weapons and all that. What distinction do we need to make? And how seriously do we need to take the formative periods of such groupings and try to do the synchronization with what is existing now in relation to how the documentary has been put together? In relation to how the documentary was put together, yes, I admit that some images in terms of pictures that were thrown out there, the guys were in masks. But you know the time we find ourselves. The timing would have coincided very well with the pictures. And so I wouldn't want to take the pictures out of context, because then how did Manasseh get the pictures? He got the pictures from, I'm sure, the Ayawaso something. And the Ayawaso something, we know that per the account of the Minister of National Security, there is a possibility that there are party vigilante groups who have found their way into the national security. He said it. I'm not saying it. He said it.
Kandapa. And so as far as I'm concerned, yes, the pictures did not depict what we saw, but the formative, I mean, the idea of this whole documentary has to do with the fact that the president is saying disband. We don't want this, we don't want that, we don't want that, we don't want that. And you look at the list of the directors, for me, that is where I get worried. We have military officers there, we have that there, we have that there, and I think the CEO is a former bodyguard of the president. That speaks volumes. It means that he used his own powers to do whatever. And so as far as I'm concerned, let's marry the pictures we saw from what Manasseh put out there and what we saw, and look at it and say, okay, even though the pictures is different, I mean, what we saw, you know, didn't really depict what the pictures was sorting to portray. And these guys were not holding weapons. I mean, you don't, anyone, I mean, I believe my other colleagues, the Dr. Ishmael, you know, Yankson, and, you know, some of these people, Dr. Ainin and the rest, some of my colleagues who have a lot of knowledge in this area. I mean, I believe that we can have a conversation on this, and let's go to the roots of how these people are usually brainwashed, indoctrinated, and probably bring up to speed with regards to how they want them to operate. You put them in a room, or you catch them young and begin to indoctrinate them. I have heard school of thought that, oh, this is an employment agency. I'm not sure if the council is a place for people seeking jobs to go and write their names. I don't think if the council now is what is being used for that purpose. But as far as I'm concerned, listen, let's not take this thing out of context. The timing with regards to when Manasseh showed his video and when the commission ended its work and all that helps, because then the president says, can you guys, what do you call it, disband? And unfortunately, we are seeing something else. And to me, that is very worrying. It's worrying because then the president looks like might have put people there who are not telling him the truth. The president, I'm sure the president would be, I'm not sure the president, if for some occasion would go to the castle, but I don't think he goes to the castle all the time. And so his appointees are the people who are letting him down, and he's allowing them to still be there. And so if he is not doing what he's supposed to be doing, his appointees can come in and call his name and say people are kind of painting the president in a bad light. But the truth is that why wouldn't they say they, the appointees themselves, are not making the work of the president easy? Because then these are things that should not have happened, but it's happened, and the president has appointed them. And so for me, Roland, this documentary is very important. The party militia must disband. If you go to national security itself, there are people in there who shouldn't be there. So, Roland, these are things that we should be looking at.
How do we then now, if we want to draw conclusions on many other things that we're doing, say the president seen publicly, based on his utterances, to show a physical gesture of having a commitment to fight party militia, so to speak, or even vigilantism. But on the other side, you go and find more information, and the actors, based on their actions, who are his appointees, seem to be at variance with that talk. How do we synchronize that?
I will synchronize it by saying the president might have appointed the wrong people. He might have appointed the wrong people because then, even with me, the business I run, anyone who runs, even if you run a business that you employ 2 people, it's difficult to sometimes get them to do the right thing. And so you can imagine 30 million people with 124 or 23 ministers. And if all this, some of these ministers, I doubt he sees them all the time. It tells you that his ministers might be telling him something different. And just like the reasons we are told Kwame Nkrumah was almost all the time being told things were good, and he was toppled because we are told jokingly because of milk and groceries. And he said he would have, what do you call it, put in, if you open your tap, milk would flow if he had known. And so what I can say is that, Roland, his ministers, some of his ministers who are supposed to be giving him, telling him what he doesn't want to hear. When I say what he doesn't want to hear, should be the things that when you tell him, he will sit up. I say, how did that happen? But they are telling him things that he rather relaxes, only for probably you, the media, and civil society, and the rest of us come out with exposés there, and he's surprised. And so, as far as I'm concerned, his ministers are painting a picture of everything is, beautiful. Meanwhile, and painting that picture to the president. Meanwhile, in the room, what is going on is so different. And so it's up to the president to probably, as if you are playing chess, move some of these people, get rid of some of them, bring in people who will tell you things that will make you sit up. Until then, these security challenges we are facing is going to continue till 2020. Until the president does that, we are going to face one security scandal to the other, because then his appointees are not talking to one another. His appointees, egos are up there in the sky. His appointees some of his appointees don't know what they are doing. And so, Roland, these are things that for me, until the president sits up and say, I am the president elected, and therefore I will put my feet down and get things done, we'll find ourselves in this situation. During Kufuor's time, we didn't see this kind of big scandals. I even believe John Mama, we didn't see that at Mills, we didn't see some of these things, coming up. And so I think that the president still has the opportunity to get rid of some of his ministers and probably bring in new faces who will do the job and tell him straight up and say, President, what is going on? Then the president, what is going on? But they are lying to him. Scientists are just lying to him. That's what I can say.
We know the genesis of this, where these groupings are festered in the two main parties. And now, on the sidelines, the gesture has been made by the president that the two parties need to sit. Of course, we've had some reactions in the statement coming from the president. The NDC seem to think that there seemed to be the need to have some complementary quasi-bodies, some mediators, some ombudsman, so to speak.
Yeah.
How crucial should we posit all this, making sure that we have some frank conversations on the direction of how these groups are operating, where we have to put our perspective on security?
I think we have mediation experts within the ECOWAS bloc. We have mediation experts within the AU. We have mediation experts within the UN itself. And so if you ask me, Roland, I will say that let's not go far. Let's look at probably somebody from ECOWAS, from the ECOWAS grouping, one who can be drafted in to mediate in this, so that that person probably will play that neutral role, mediator. And I also want to then together, once that person is doing it, let's open it up and ask other people to come in to be witnesses to the discussions, frank discussions, because I know that some time ago they signed some peace accord among the parties to disband, but it didn't, the next day something else, they did something else. So let's bring this independent mediator from probably the ECOWAS bloc to do that. But I would recommend that let's look at a joint security task force against party militia and vigilantism, a joint security task force, so that the joint military security task force, their work would be a standby force who are ready to quell any of these disturbances. For instance, if you are talking about this Osu castle thing, they will go in and they would be speaking to the general public about, not the party, speaking to the general public about what they are doing. And so then you have the mediator supervising the work of the joint, security task force against party militia and vigilantism. Once we do that, the task force would not be reporting directly to the executive, but will reporting to that independent mediator who is there to disband the militia or the party vigilantes among the political parties. Once that is done, then I believe that it will be one of the surest way or an impartial way of looking at this banning, party vigilantes, because then these political parties don't trust one another. So it doesn't matter what you do. If you say the two of them should sit, go in there with your camera, they are going to box each other, they will beat each other before they come out. And so for me, Roland, this is how, that would be one of my, solutions to disbanding political vigilante and militia in this country.
It's been a great conversation. I've enjoyed it. And I know that we can come back to you anytime we need some complimentary voice on the general conversation about how we can improve our general security, but also how we can improve the involvement of young people in any form of security setup in the political parties, because there need to be the trust for the police and the other security agencies we have in our country. That should be it.
Correct, yes.
All right.
Correct.
Thank you very much, and thank you for joining us. We're just on the compound of Security Warehouse Limited, and we've been speaking to the CEO, who is also a known security expert in the media, Adam Bonaa. Mr. Adam Bonaa has varied experiences across the sub-region in our country as well, has great academic knowledge on the state of security in West Africa and in our country as we put all these into better perspective. Well, we have to go back to the studio, but please make sure that you always
Right. Well, Adam Bonaa there speaking to Roland Walker. Mr. Bonaa, of course, is a security analyst, giving us some insights into the recent DI group revelation by JoyNews.